Hello, welcome back to another episode of Not Overthinking. This is a pretty special episode. For the first time ever, we actually have six people on the podcast. We are on a group holiday together in the Cotswolds, and we're going to have a group discussion about a few things. And so we'll just do some quick introductions to start off with.
Hi, I'm Zadie.
Hi, I'm Sheen.
Hi, my name's Ali.
Hi, I'm Tamor.
Hi, I'm Lucia.
Hello, I'm Cardinal.
Awesome. So we have been in the Cotswolds since Friday, so 3 or 4 days now. It's going to be a 4-day trip in total, and we're heading home tomorrow. And one of the things that's come up that I think will be interesting to get everyone's thoughts on. We haven't actually talked about this before, so this will be the first time we're actually talking about this, and it is about this specific trip. So this could go badly, or it could go really well. One of the things that's come up is that some of the group want to do certain activities, and others in the group want to do other activities. So, for example, there's usually a few people who want to basically just work all day, go to a hotel, sit down with their laptops, do some work. And then there's another group of people who, want to do some kind of group activities like going on a walk or visiting a model village, that kind of stuff. And I thought it'd be interesting to get everyone's thoughts on, not what's acceptable, but like what do you guys all think is a good balance of people doing their own thing while on holiday with friends versus people doing group things while on holiday with friends?
Who wants to go first?
I think
Ali's gonna go last.
I think maybe I'll start. So I think it's worth saying that I think it depends on like what expectations everyone had going in. So if some,
I feel like you should go last because you're gonna like lay out a thesis that you've already thought about. Most of us probably haven't thought about this.
All right, fine.
And therefore, they're always gonna be like, yeah, seems reasonable, especially if your point is very much
Well refined.
Sorry, I should have said that on the microphone. I think you should go last because
right.
you've already thought about this. You have a thesis, and given that none of the rest of us have probably been thinking about it to the extent that you have, you probably want to get our perspectives first. Otherwise, we'll just agree with you because your perspective is probably going to sound reasonable. Yeah. And it's probably going to be some kind of middle ground. Well, it kind of depends. You kind of do what you want, sort of be authentic to yourself.
All right,
and don't abuse the children or whatever spiel you normally come up with.
No, I think you're right. Do you have a perspective you want to share there?
Not yet.
We can think about it. Like we can cut pauses and stuff. We don't have to.
Alright, cool. Well, I'll go first then. Okay. I think it kind of depends on how long the trip is. So that's like one of the features of the trip, of the kind of the answer of whether you're allowed group independent activities or not. I think the other thing is maybe kind of foreshadowing Timur's eventual response, which is like, what are the expectations going in? So if you're going to go on a trip for, let's say, 5-6 days and you're hanging out together all the time, it can be a bit of a cabin fever situation where you kind of just need some space. People need to do their own things. And it also kind of depends on the combination of people, so like with my really close friends, sometimes they'll come over and I'm just like not feeling it, not feeling them in my house or whatever, but not feeling like, oh yeah, let's like have a massive Halo session or like, let's play guitar for 7 hours. It would be like, right, I'm just going to like sit in my room and scroll Instagram. I know that sounds so messed up, but it's just like, sometimes you need to be comfortable with your friends enough to be like, it's okay for me to sit by myself in this seat, looking at my phone. When Clubhouse came out, I had this like addiction to Clubhouse, and I used to like sneak into my room and have these like Clubhouse conversations, and then everyone's like, "What are you doing?" Like they like come into my room like, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's like, AI guys, come on, just chill out. But yeah, I think yeah, number of people, what the expectations are going in, and how comfortable you are with the people that are in the group. So that's kind of my initial thoughts.
Okay, nice. So when your friends come over to your house and you want to scroll Instagram or talk about AI on Clubhouse, what do you tell them? Like, what are they up to while you're doing this?
Okay, usually nothing. I'm just kind of like, I just kind of walk away, like not mid conversation. I'll be like, they're not talking to me, but I'll just kind of get up and just go to my room, and in the moment they probably don't even realize that I'm gone because everyone's just like talking about something. And then a bit, they'll be like, oh, where's Zadie? And they'll be like, oh, he's probably on Clubhouse or something, So, yeah, I guess like that's kind of usually what happens. And what they're usually doing is, well, depends. They're usually like raiding my fridge, doing their own thing. One guy loves taking showers in my bathroom for some reason. Like He'll like take his sweet time. But yeah, everyone's kind of doing their own thing. And then the other issue is with a lot of people is that it's really the reason why group activities are so frustrating is because it takes a lot of coordination. And like some dudes take like 7 hours in the shower, and some people are like 5 minutes in and out. And it can be a bit frustrating for a variety of people, the people being rushed and the people waiting, right? So it almost feels like the least friction way of getting things, like doing things in a group, is just to not do anything at all. You know what I mean? Like if you have an itinerary, it has there's an assumption that people can get ready in a particular amount of time, and you can get from point A to point B in a certain amount of time. But most friends that I have are in like a whole spectrum of how long they take to get ready, what their moods are, and yeah, it can be very frustrating. It can almost be like put strain on your friendship just by like having a plan. You know, I know like when I go on holiday with people, like I'm sometimes like, do we have to do everything on this itinerary? Can we just skip 4 or 5 things out of the 6? And
yeah, so I think like if you want to minimize friction, yeah, they're definitely the way to do it is to not do anything at all. I agree. Just for context, how close are you with these friends of yours who come to your house while you go on Instagram?
Very close.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of some of the relationships at university where, you know, you have a room, there's people on your corridor or whatever, very close friends, and people will just kind of be coming in and out, doing their own thing. You might chat and stuff, but there's certainly no expectation that if people are in your room, you have to be kind of doing an activity together. So I think if it's that kind of relationship, I totally get what you're saying.
But usually if you're like arranging a holiday, it's because like you want to do certain things or like have certain experiences like with your friends and that kind of thing. Like it's a bit different than just like chilling at home. And I think often like when you're what people enjoy about holidays are like those like shared activities and that kind of thing. Yeah,
and I think we were talking about this earlier with Lucia, where, you know, when you go on holiday, everything changes, right? Your location, what you do, your routine. The one thing that is there that is familiar is the company. So then you want to spend time with the company, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what you're doing together, as long as you're doing something together, which is why we went to the hotel where people were working, just because we wanted to be together with the people, you know?
Yeah, so just for some context, I think today half the group went to a hotel. We all had breakfast together, actually. Mm-hmm. We did do that. And then half the group went to a hotel to work for a while. And the other half went to a model village. It was a 1/9 scale replica of the village we're staying in, which was quite cool. And then we decided to go and join the hotel gang to kind of keep the group together, and that kind of got us thinking.
Okay, so I was part of the working gang.
Surprise,
like,
surprise.
For the record, in case anyone was wondering, from the perspective of a member of the non-working gang, I'd love to hear the non-working gang's perspective on how they felt when it was suggested last night that, right, I'm going to go over to this hotel to do some work because I've got work to do. Anyone else want to come? All right, cool. Half the group's going to the hotel to do some work. The other half of the group will do their model villaging or whatever they were going to do. How did that make you feel?
I think like mainly you just think, okay, well, it's nice that people get to do what they want to do. You don't want anyone to feel like pressured to hang out with you or like, you know, mandatory group activities. Like it just isn't a fun vibe. But on the other hand, like it is nice to spend time with your friends. So you feel a bit like, oh, that's a bit of a shame. But I'm overall happy that people get to do what they do. But then from a personal perspective, I would feel bad going to work because I'm like super conscious of like, you know, creating a good experience for others and like having a nice vibe and like contributing and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my view.
But surely it isn't just the amount of time you spend with someone, it's also the, you know, the conversations you have, right? So me spending more time, okay, by the way, for context, I was part of this working group for one day. The other day I did spend time with you guys. But surely, so surely it's the time that you spend. So surely it's the conversations you have, not just the time you spend with someone. So, you know, the first day we all just chilled together. It was nice, got to know everyone, you know, built relationships, you know, as we say. And then the second day, I think, you know, half the day spent, you know, traversing around Cotswolds, another day working. And then today I know I was a flake. I know, guys, I'm sorry. But I felt like the vibes it was like the vibes were like in two ways, right? So one half was keen to work, one half was keen to see things. And as long as you have touch points in between, you're still keeping the bond strong.
Okay, I think that's fair. I'm a little wary of this whole thing being framed as like working gang versus non-working gang on the Cotswolds trip. So, so yeah, I just want to make it clear that that's not what's going on here. This is really just an open discussion with no agenda, no narrative I'm trying to push. Not trying to attack working gang at all. No, I think the touch points are good. So like I think we always meet up for meals. Mm-hmm. Like we had lunch together before, working gang went and did some work, obviously. And, but no, I think the touch points are nice. I don't know how I feel about your point about it's about the conversation rather than the actual time spent, because I think, I think even if you're not talking and stuff, I think there is something nice and meaningful about spending time together with people. And I think even if you are optimizing for conversation, whatever that means, I think it's very hard to predict when a good conversation will happen, and it's also not easy to like make it happen over lunch and then disband. But if you're spending an extended 12 hours together, you can almost guarantee that multiple good conversations will happen.
Yeah. And I think the good conversations come out of spending a lot of time together, and things get gradually a bit deeper, a bit more intense, and that's when the good stuff comes out. So I feel like if you have breaks where people are in a different mind frame and I don't know, thinking about work, then when you come back together, people might still be kind of on that train and they're not really in the kind of vibing group frame sometimes.
Two things. Firstly, surely, let's say a few of us obviously had things on our mind and we know that we needed to get it done. Surely that if they were stuck with the group, they would have completely changed the dynamic of the group as the first thing. I forgot my second point.
No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the discussion is less about once we're on the holiday and we're in a situation where people want to work, should we be coercing people into doing other things? I think it's more about bigger picture, more structurally going into a holiday, what's kind of a good way to be thinking about it and stuff like that. If people want to work, they should absolutely do that. It's pointless coercing people into doing things they don't want to do.
So one thing that one way in which I think of this is, I think once a holiday group size reaches a critical mass where it becomes acceptable for essentially people to break off of that critical mass without it actually affecting the experience of people in the rest of the group in a significant way, then I think it becomes a lot more reasonable. So, for example, if there were 3 people on a group holiday and one person would decide to work, that's a 2 and a 1, and that's really weird. If there's 4 on a group holiday and one person decides to work for a few hours, I think that's a lot more reasonable. But if there's 4 and then 2 decide to work, it becomes a 2 and a 2, and that doesn't quite work. Again, equally 5, 6, and so on. I think, and so I think there is that element of what is happening to the group as a result of an individual's actions was sort of to serve their own self-interest rather than the group interest. And in some contexts, partly depending on size, partly depending on how well the group knows each other. If, for example, some people in the group know each other super well and others don't, and a removal of a key member of that group for doing something self-centered would actually impact the experience of the rest of the group. That's, I won't say problematic, but it's something they should take into account. Yeah.
Can I offer something relating to this? Again, we talked about this today, where you're right about the whole ratio thing. If it's a big group, then, for example, us being 50-50, we split up, it was fine. But we were also thinking that, yes, I really enjoyed, what name did we give ourselves? The famous throuple.
The power throuple.
The power throuple, sorry. That's what we were.
I didn't consent to this.
But that was fun. But also we would want to spend time with Zadie and you and Kajol, and we were saying how it's not just about the number if it's a big enough group, but we also value your presence there and how that would affect the dynamics. And given that we're not seeing you people specifically, that changes our experience.
Yeah. And I think people baseline underrate how valuable
Yes.
they are to the experience of others. Like you
Yeah.
probably don't think you add that much a lot of the time,
Yeah.
whereas in reality you do.
You're just on one number out of 3. You are
Yeah.
you adding to that group. Does that make sense?
Kind of sounds like an intervention, right?
Again, I didn't want it to come across that way. That's not what we're trying to do here.
But the other thing is like from other experiences where I've been in a group and my mind isn't in the moment, I'm actually very bad company. My friends will be like, "Why the hell did you even come if you're not going to be present?" Because it's kind of almost more disrespectful, I feel, if I show up to a group event and I'm not there, because then people are like expecting me to be available either conversationally or emotionally or whatever, and I'm not. As opposed to I'm making my position very clear, saying, right, my mind is somewhere else right now. I need to address this. Once I address it, I'll be available for X number of hours, whatever.
I'm not sure how much I buy this,
Okay.
because similar to Lucia's point, I feel that you are underrating the value you add to a group just by being there.
Mm-hmm.
And what it sounds like you're saying is that when you're in a group, you're in performance mode. And if you are not operating at peak performance, then you're actually a kind of energy suck on the group or things like that. And I think it's rare for people to, I feel like in groups that I've been part of, it is rare for any one person to be such a downer on the energy that it actually does affect the group.
Right.
And in fact, I would rather, even if you did have work on your mind, I would
Sure.
still rather you're part of the group. Similarly with any other friend that I'm close to, because they add something beyond their ability to converse and provide emotional support or things in a
Right.
group setting.
I almost think it's like the reverse. I feel like if I'm in a mood where I'm like supposed to be working and I'm in with my friends, I feel like then I'm in performance mode, because then I have to try to increase my energy levels to engage. Whereas my natural feeling at the time is like, right, I just want to be looking at this piece of code or whatever, get out of the way. And then when I'm with my friends, they'll be like, wait, aren't you listening? Or like, are you present? Or did you hear what I said? And it's like, yeah. And then you're sort of like forcing yourself. I feel it's almost unnatural to be part of that conversation because they're just at a different energy level than you. So that's when I feel like the performance comes in, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, I get that. I think I was feeling that a bit last night after like a few rounds of like Snatch, Dobble, Mind, Avalon. I was like, at this point, I'm so tired. I feel like my presence is going to be detracting from the group. Like, I definitely need to go to bed. But then again, like, I think people are always more self-perceptive of that. Like, it may not actually be a valid thing, like what Ali says. Like, usually if we're ever in a group situation and I'm like, oh, sorry, I wasn't like totally with it, you guys are like, well, I didn't notice at all. So, yeah.
But what do you think like the purpose is of group holidays in general? Like, what is it meant to achieve?
Oh, deep.
I'd refer you to episode 2. Sorry, I'm kidding. No, I think it's about kind of group bonding, vibing, whatever you want to call it. I think it's very hard to create the kind of atmosphere in normal day-to-day life that really allows people to connect. Yeah, if you have like dinner after work or something, and everyone's like kind of got the clock on their mind of like, oh, I better go in like half an hour, when's the train, this kind of stuff. I think in normal life, which is kind of built around largely work, it is hard to create the kind of atmosphere that is really conducive to socializing, I think. And I think a group holiday where you don't have like time boxes for things, you have long extended periods of time, unstructured time together, for a few days. I think that's where the sort of magic happens when it comes to socializing.
The nice thing about a group holiday, I think, is that if you're with the right group of people who's sufficiently chill, then I feel like the objective of a group holiday is to maximize happiness across the people in the group. Now, for some of us, that sort of maximization involves maybe spending. One thing I think of holidays is like one day on, one day off. Like even if I'm going to, I don't know, Japan for 7 days, I'd quite like to spend a day doing sightseeing and visiting places, and then a day sitting in a coffee shop on my laptop, and then maybe going to another coffee shop after lunch, and then kind of repeating that process. And I think if I were on a group holiday and it was sort of day after day after day of hanging out with the same people, doing different activities and stuff, that probably would feel quite draining for me. And so for me, it's a case of, okay, I recognize this about myself. my friends are broadly okay with this about me, and therefore, as long as my absence is not actually creating a weird dynamic within the group, it will increase happiness overall for me to just go sit in a hotel for the entire day on my laptop with decent Wi-Fi and air conditioning, and then I'll join these guys. I'll have breakfast, I'll maybe have lunch, maybe I'll definitely have dinner, do the board games, do the late night DMCs. And I feel like the activities during the day, removing myself from that, significantly increases my own happiness overall, and doesn't and therefore net overall group happiness is increased.
I'm kind of curious if it actually, removing yourself from the group actually increases your happiness because you just really value time alone and like you need to recharge, or if it's because you're kind of stressed about work and it feels better to relieve that stress. Like, is it because, it reduces your like work concern, and like say you didn't have any work and like you were feeling super chill about life, would you actually also want that kind of time away from the group?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a few circumstances come to mind. So, for example, we were on a group holiday to the Lake District a few weeks ago, and I had work that needed to be done, and there was a lot on my mind. And so removing myself from the group to sit in a hotel and do the work made me really happy. But I remember a time in, final year, we were all in Singapore and Bali. And in that time, the only work I had to do was preparing for finals, like we all did. But we'd all decided we're going to take a solid break from doing that. And so I could fully throw myself into the group holiday and actually just do the activities every single day. And that felt cool as well. So I think a big part of it is dependent for me on what is my current like work-life status. And it would be really nice, I think, to be able to completely switch off and throw myself into the group stuff. At the moment, my setup doesn't really allow for that. And so overall, I much prefer to have moments of time where I can think about, the business or the book, for example, rather than... Yeah, but if I didn't have any of those on my plate, then I think I probably would do the group thing most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And just to bring up a point that you and Zadie were talking about a few minutes ago, I think Zadie kind of mentioned this of like, if I have work on my mind or something else, then I'm not going to be much fun for the group, etc. And so it's fine for me to not be there. And then you were actually kind of against that, and you were saying something like, well, even if you had work, Zadie, I'd rather you like hang out with me, actually, kind of thing.
But I think even if you had work on your mind, I'd still rather you were in the group than outside of the group. Yeah,
sure. But I think in that situation, like, and I've certainly had this as well, where if you do have some other stuff on your mind, like if I know, oh man, like I have like a bunch of things that I need to respond to that are, fairly important. Like I could kind of make myself hang out with the group or whatever, but I will just kind of be anxious about it, and I'll be a lot happier if I attend to those things without the group and then come back. And I think like, I think if someone does have other things on their mind, and it would make them happier to go and sort those other things out, I think they should do it. I don't think the group would want someone to be being unhappy, being in a situation in like a selfless way in order to make the rest of the group happy. I don't think that's but I don't think you were advocating for that.
No, I agree with you. I think the thing Zadie was saying, which I took issue with, was the idea that in that context, if you're anxious about stuff, the group would rather that you don't do it because you're a negative energy suck. Whereas it sounds like what you're saying, and what I agree with, is that it's a positive for you if you remove yourself from the group, rather than a negative for the group if you stay in the group.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I definitely felt like that today at lunch, by the way. I also think it's really dependent on, the types of people in the group. So, for instance, you'll have like people who, come in, they're kind of like drivers. They know they need to do certain things or they have a certain objective from the group, right? But then in terms of like the holiday, and then you'll end up having people who are like integrators who want to ensure that there's happiness across the group, right? And maybe like pioneers who want to do like, spontaneous work, right? Or spontaneous things on the holiday and just want to be surprised and delighted. So you're going to have different types of people in the group. And I think the thing that was missing, or the thing that we need to make sure that everyone does, is communication, right? We needed to communicate, consulting speaking. We needed to have communicate our expectations coming in, because I thought this was a writing retreat. I'm telling you this right now, okay? And for others, obviously it was a holiday, right? So I feel like potentially there needs to be some sort of communication in terms of, okay, this is what we're going to do. Is everyone okay with this? And if we aren't okay with this, how do we kind of ensure that everyone's priorities is considered at the same time?
Wow, I wasn't told this was a writing retreat. Sorry for roping you into a podcast. What were your expectations about this holiday?
I did think there'd be some working just because I knew who we were going with. But I was planning to not work because I just wanted to, make the most of it. Yeah.
I mean, I decided about 4 weeks ago this was a writing retreat and made it clear to whoever was initially suggesting the plan that, oh, great, it can be a writing retreat. I think, was it you who made the plan initially?
Yes,
Jane?
and Cardwell was there.
Oh, okay.
That's why
That's why, because we had decided this was going to be a writing retreat.
No one told us.
Don't get the memo.
The only thing I heard was Cotswolds, so I took it from there and ran, and I was like, this is the week I'm quitting my job as well. Great holiday, and I just messaged everyone about it. But I again, like you expected that some people would do work, and that's absolutely fine. Everyone should do what makes them happy during the day. Not everyone wants to spend 24/7, but yeah, it's just you do feel like you do miss people when they're not there. When it's meant to be a bonding time, etc. But yeah, what were your expectations?
My expectations, I didn't really have any expectations. I just wanted to just hang out, just go with the flow. If that meant everyone pulls out their laptop, cool. If that meant going for hikes, cool. One of the things that I always think about in group holidays, and that affects me, is like FOMO. I don't know if you guys ever feel that, if you're like the only one working and everyone else is having fun. So did any of you working people feel FOMO?
There's an acronym I came across on Twitter the other day called JOMO. The joy of missing out. And I really feel the JOMO when I'm on my laptop and I'm the only one working. Because I feel like this is great. Like, other people are having a great time. There is enough of them that I trust that they'll be having a great time without me. This is so sick. I can just focus on my work. I'm loving life right now.
I don't think it's just about FOMO though. Like, I think for many of us, we've had like time deadlines in our mind, and we knew that by the end of this weekend we needed to get like shit done, right? And because of that didn't happen, you end up deprioritizing certain parts of the trip that you potentially feel that they'll still have fun without you. So for instance, the model village today, I was like, okay, you guys, in the morning you'll still have fun without me at least seeing something, so I think that was like why I was like, okay, I'm going to deprioritize this, but I am sorry for not coming.
Oh, hang on, I think there's something interesting here. So Zadie, the way you're describing FOMO, fear of missing out, that's a kind of, I am concerned because I am working that I am missing out on fun. Whereas I feel in these sorts of contexts, and depending on the people, I think it's probably true for most of us, we're a lot more concerned that I hope the group is okay and they're having fun, rather than, oh, I'm sad to be missing out on the fun that the group are having. And so I think is there a word? It's a word for that. It's like, I don't know. It's like if I'm at home and I don't know, the family is watching a TV show, I'm not feeling like a fear of missing out on the episode of the TV show unless it's a TV show I really want to watch. I'm more hoping that they don't feel snaked, that I'm not part of that group thingy. And I feel like that's more what's going on here than I might potentially miss out on an activity myself.
I do also get a bit of FOMO sometimes, especially like late night chats. Like if I even if I really want to go to bed, I don't, just because I feel like I'm going to miss something like really juicy. And I don't know.
I totally get the whole thing, like, oh right, I want the group to have fun. But for me, I guess the FOMO is more around like building bonds with the people there that I'm missing out on. And it's like, right, we could have DMCs, just like you said, missing out on deep conversations. I guess the other thing that came to mind around this whole FOMO thing, and typically I feel FOMO when, say, for example, my friends come over and I have like an interview in the morning and have to sleep early and everyone else is up all night. How much do you think that you should disrupt your like daily routine or like when you sleep? How uncomfortable should you feel in a group holiday to like for squeezing the maximum, experience out of that 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, I often think about this, and because I think I think when I go on a group holiday, I typically sort of throw all my normal life stuff out of the window. Like I typically won't exercise. I had grand plans to like go running every day while we've been here. I only did it today. I haven't done any exercise outside of that. My diet has been, I don't know what, not particularly good. And I often, I have some friends who, even when they're on holiday, they'll kind of have their own routine of like wake up early in the morning, get their shit done, go on a run, do their workout and stuff. And then when everyone else is like starting to wake up at 9 a.m., they've done all of their stuff, and then they're ready to like have fun or whatever. So I think I often feel like I could probably do with having more of my own routine that I make sure I stick to, even if I'm not at home. But that's just me.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot recently as well, in terms of when it comes to prioritizing things in our lives, what should the priority be, or what is the priority between things like personal health and relationships? Because, you know, it's pretty widely accepted that relationships are the most important thing in life. But it's also pretty widely accepted that, like, you know, physical and mental health for yourself is like super, super important. And one context in which I find this comes up a lot is when it comes to, do I stay up late night talking to a friend / talking to a group until 3 o'clock in the morning, or playing board games until 3 o'clock in the morning? Or do I prioritize my own sleep and know that, okay, my sleep routine is that I sleep at midnight every day, I wake up at 7:30 and then I do stuff, etc., etc. And I keep on flip-flopping between the two. And I think, I don't know, if I imagine the ideal kind of life, I don't want to be so rigid in my approach that I'm potentially missing out on like an absolutely juicy DMC in the evening. But I think I probably go too far in that direction right now and don't prioritize my own health and kind of well-being / own routines enough, and end up prioritizing the friends type thing, especially when it comes to late night stuff. And I think kind of the group holiday priority routine thing is sort of on the same spectrum as that.
Yeah, I have that problem as well. And I think I need to recalibrate a little bit. Definitely prioritizing like the late night and then really missing out on sleep. And then it also impacts like work and stuff the next few days, which is obviously quite bad. But it just feels like at the time, it's just like the most important thing ever. Like, how could it not be like really important just to stay up all night? I don't know. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I had this experience very recently where I ended up staying up till 5 a.m. talking to a friend. And at that time, it felt like, oh, this is great. I'm not going to miss out on this conversation. And it's just sleep. You know, you can catch up on sleep anytime. And the next day, I hated myself for doing that. So, yeah, I understand. And I'm the same as you, Timur. When I go on holiday, I throw everything out of the window. I wake up early. I'd never wake up early, but I just want to maximize the time that you will spend on holiday with your friends. And I think I definitely stopped doing my own stuff just because I think this is a short time. We have a special time together. Let's do the most. But I think this probably needs recalibration.
Yeah, I think a big part of all this stuff comes down to, like, what do you see as the point of a holiday? And on the holiday front, the way I view a holiday is that, okay, this is a time for me to enjoy myself and, again, kind of maximize happiness. And so I think in the past when I was younger, I could not imagine why on earth anyone would want to go to holiday to sit by the beach to read a book, because, well, you can just read a book in your bedroom. And I very, very strongly believed this until I became the sort of person who wants to go on holiday and sit by the beach and read a book. And I'm like, damn, there's something really nice about that. And for me, the value of a holiday, it's not really about the holiday. It's not really about seeing stuff. It's about doing things that make me happy. And some of that is hanging out with friends, which is why I like having dinner with friends, and I really love like the board games and the DMCs at nighttime. But if it comes to things like visiting a model village, honestly, couldn't really care less. And so that's the sort of stuff, as Kajal said, that I'd be deprioritizing if I do have work on my mind.
All right, I'll be honest. When we found out that there were no model trains in the model village, I was not too keen on the model village. But it's not about the model village.
It was pretty underwhelming, to be honest. But we
Right?
still had a great time.
What?
The model village being underwhelming.
It was a
Yeah,
bit
there were no
underwhelming.
trains. There was running water, which was cool.
And no animals.
Yeah, we thought it would be better if they actually had like populated it with animals.
But like, we're glad it doesn't really matter what was in the model village.
Okay, no, it doesn't really matter what you do in the model village, but it's like, fine, that in that context, the model village is a stationary vehicle for hanging out with
Okay.
the squad. And I think in all of these things, there is diminishing returns. And so, for example, if you're having breakfast with the squad, lunch with the squad, dinner with the squad, board games with the squad, group podcast with the squad, DMCs at nighttime with the squad after eating miracle berries and sucking on limes, adding in model village with the squad and farmyard with the squad, we're starting to get into diminishing marginal returns. Let's be fair.
The farmyard with the squad was actually really good. You did miss out a little bit there.
Excuse me, yeah.
Yeah, we initially planned to go to like some kind of something palace or something. I don't know.
Today.
But then it was
Yeah.
closed, so we just like went into a field and just sat and
Might
chatted.
have trespassed, but
I think it was a public footpath. Yeah, it's
Okay.
all good. But yeah, I think that was like one of the best times we've had.
yeah.
And you don't know when it's going to happen because you're just together and vibing, and you
Yeah.
don't know. So
Yeah, so for context, we were meant to go to this palace and garden. We went there at 6 p.m. on a Sunday thinking it would be open. And then we just ended up lying on the grass, not talking for, half an hour. And then suddenly it was the best time ever. So it's not about what you do. Again, the point is just, spending time with the squad.
Yeah, I don't think your model of diminishing marginal returns is quite right, because I do think for this kind of stuff, you can't like orchestrate when good moments will happen, and you can't plan them, and it just comes from spending unstructured, untime box time together. And I think the time boxing is actually key. I think if it was like, for example, if you wanted to, let's say there are 18 waking hours in the day, and you want to get 9 hours of work done, and you want to hang out with the gang for 9 hours. If it's like 2 hours on, 2 hours off kind of thing, where every session is time box of like, okay, we're going to have lunch for 2 hours, then I'm going to do a work session for 2 hours, then we're going to go to a model village for 2 hours, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's not really conducive to sort of socializing. I think it's really about the unstructured, untime box time. And so I think the setup of just having meals together and then disbanding in between is actually not great. I think like a more optimal setup might be that, like, I don't know, we'll spend like the first half of the day, everyone doing their own thing. And then from like 3 p.m. or whatever, like everyone's kind of doing stuff together. So I think the time boxing is the real issue.
I think the other thing is that 6 is quite a few people, quite a large number of people, and it's hard to get to know people on an individual basis in that number. So, for example, having more opportunities to hang out often enable those like one-on-one break-offs. Like on the way to the hotel is like me, Ellie, and Kajol, and we like whatever, maybe sat in silence, listened to some music, talked a little bit, and on the way back it was me, you, and Timur, and that was like a lot more calm. And Sheen was there as well. And I just feel like having those smaller groups that sometimes are created as a result of, those hangouts can like help you get to know one another a little bit better in a way that isn't possible if you're like always hanging out together.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think small breakout groups are good. I'm in favor of those.
I guess the other thing that I was thinking about was, coming back to your question about like, what is the purpose of a holiday? Sometimes when I'm doing a lot of sightseeing, I feel like I need a holiday after the holiday because I'm so tired. And when you said like, oh, I do 1 day on and 1 day off, like sitting in the cafe, like I never heard anyone say that. And that sounds like pretty reasonable because you get to recharge, relax. Because like I was just in Scotland, and when I came back, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But I'm now going to Cotswolds, and I don't want to be tired for that. So I just wonder, like, what's your approach to that? Like, what do you think about what's the purpose of the holiday? Is it to relax? Is it for experiences? Do you need a holiday after your holiday? Does that happen?
I don't think I need a holiday after a holiday. I think it's broadly to relax. I think for me, I don't really care about interesting experiences very much. I think for me, it's all about the people and just hanging out, regardless of what's being done. But I think for me, if it's just like hanging out with people for 3 days or whatever, I don't think I'd need a holiday from that afterwards. If it's like, lots of sightseeing in a new country or whatever, where you're constantly sort of being ferried around and looking at things, I think I might need a holiday after that.
Yeah, this came up for me in the last few weeks, where there's been like a group holiday or something or other going on practically every weekend now that lockdown was eased up slightly. And there was one trip that you invited me on where it was going to fall between like 2 group holidays, and I just thought, you know what, no, it would be just really nice to have this weekend by myself in Cambridge, sitting at home, or maybe going to WeWork and either just chilling or more likely actually doing some work and catching up on stuff. And even though I had a little bit of FOMO that, I missed out on the board games and stuff, I think overall I'm glad that I had that weekend to myself because I needed/wanted that time to recharge.
Yeah, I totally buy that. I think you can have sort of too much of a good thing. And yeah, in the past like month or something, I've declined at least one group holiday because I feel like it would just be like too much. At the moment, I'm maintaining a cadence of about 1 a month, which I think it feels about right. It may be a bit too frequent. I'm not sure. I'm undecided on that. How often do the rest of you do this kind of stuff?
Literally, this is the first one this year.
Yeah, it's been about one a month, possibly slightly more than one a month, which I think is a bit too frequent because it definitely is then hard to switch back into like the focused, productive work zone, which is where I kind of need to be doing the things that are also important in my life. But I also think that for you, Ali, it sounds like part of it is like the amount of work and stuff that you have to do. And like that sounds maybe not optimal for you overall maximizing your like fulfillment. I don't know. Maybe it is good, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that one.
Yeah, I mean, this week that we're on this on this holiday and next week is meant to be a sabbatical for me and the entire team, where, you know, everyone takes time off. The only thing that we publish on the internet is one video on Wednesday, which has already been pre-scheduled, and like literally no meetings, no calls, no nothing. And I was super pumped for this. I was like, yeah, sabbatical. But then last few days, stuff's just come up, and it feels like a lot is going on in the business, and it genuinely feels like if I were to take this week off, that would be it feels like that would be bad, because of all the things that are going on. And I keep thinking to myself, like, it's a week, like what difference is a week really going to make? But then I keep thinking, well, at the stage that we're at right now, like I don't really need to take a week off. I've got a few days off on this trip, and then there's Eid coming up and so on. But instead of thinking it as a week or sort of a think week, like, you know, people famously take to get their mind clear, instead I was thinking of like, oh yes, my whole week is clear. I've got no calls. Great, I can just sit down and do more work. But I've got a friend and mentor who does these sabbaticals every 7th week. He and his entire team, he pays them, they take the entire week off, and they're not allowed. The rule of the sabbatical is you're not allowed to have anything pre-scheduled. Like, while you're there, if you want to work, you can, but you have no kind of obligations, no commitments or anything. And he says that it often takes like sort of 3 to 6 months to actually get into this and know how to switch off when you have a week off, rather than thinking of it as empty blocks in my calendar that I can then schedule things into. And so this week I feel like it's been a bit of a cop out because, well, stuff keeps on happening in the business, and every week I think, okay, next week is when things are going to quieten down, and then I'll be able to take some time. But it's all kind of fun, really. I think it's all part of the journey, and yeah, I think it's just about finding that balance and just not trying actively to not burn out. And I think at least historically, I've done a pretty good job at not burning out, even though there's been lots to do. But I would like to have 7th week sabbaticals. I think that's a dream.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you say, oh, but it's all fun, really, it's like a bit of a rationalization.
Literally.
And I'm not sure like you really do like it that much to be, I think it is a bit much for you at the moment. I don't know.
Justify himself.
Yeah, also you said, it was interesting, you said you think that you have to work rather than you actually want to. You think that is going to be detrimental for the business if you don't work, but I don't think that's factually correct. Like, you replying to all the emails 1 week later would not make any difference to anything. Or you doing the things that you're doing on your sabbatical would not affect the business if it's 1 week late. So I think you are making the decision that you're going to do it now because it's on your mind, rather than really taking a break. That would not be detrimental.
Yeah, that's probably reasonable. I mean, obviously replying to emails a week late is not actually going to do anything bad. Yeah, I guess I do need to sit down and think, okay, does me doing work in this week actually move things? It's when I say work, it's often more like kind of short, medium, long-term planning-y type things, where it feels like, oh, now that we've got this week where there's nothing going on, it's the perfect time to do some planning. Whereas any attempt to do the planning in the middle of while loads of other stuff is going on, especially with the team, makes planning quite difficult. And so this feels like, oh, me and Angus actually have all of Wednesday completely free, where we can just have an all-day meeting about our quarterly goals. That's the kind of stuff where I feel like if I didn't do it this week, it would be actually quite hard to find a time to do it next week or the week after, where there's all sorts of other stuff going on.
Yeah, this is perfect time to do the planning. But has it been planning that you've been working on the past 2 days? Or are you actually doing real work?
I was doing real work, and that was I had a book proposal deadline. But beyond that, it was actually planning.
Okay.
And so the planning has been genuinely fun, because I rarely have time to take a step back and think about working on the business rather than in the business. and these sabbaticals or this holiday, sort of, I was saying to these guys yesterday, we were all sitting outside and it was nice, it was sunny, you could hear the fish in the background, and I just got so much thinking done, and so I got so much clarity on where we're going as a business, which I just haven't done before, because there's always been like one thing after another, and so that to me on the inside feels like it doesn't feel like work, because it's like taking a step back and thinking, but from the outside it probably does look like work because I'm on my laptop and typing things out.
Yeah, I find, I agree with you on the planning thing, but I actually find the best time to do it is like after a little break, or after time, like properly off work, even just a couple of days. Then I find, like, for my organization, I just have a much better sense of perspective, because you're no longer thinking about like all the details and the small tasks. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of sabbatical, right? You need to step back so you can see the bigger picture, because you're too inside it in order to be able to plan. So short break and then recalibrate.
So we started this conversation with Timur sort of foreshadowing that it matters what our expectations are going in. So I was just wondering if we could loop back to that, and maybe, you could start off by describing what your expectations were for this holiday, but in general, what are your expectations for holidays? Like, what's an ideal holiday look like? Group holiday specifically.
Yeah, so for me, for like the monthly group holiday that I try to do, I want it to be like a complete unplugging. I think unplugging from work entirely for a weekend is 100% doable, broadly regardless of what's going on in the business. One weekend a month is neither here nor there. And I think having that space is actually good for the work side of things. However, I think I don't always do a great job at actually unplugging. So, for example, a bunch of stuff had piled up over the past couple of days, and like today, while we were kind of hanging out for a couple of hours, I was like attending to various work things. And I felt good afterwards, because I think in the back of my mind, I was like, oh man, there's like a bunch of stuff waiting for me when I get back. And then when you get back on like, Monday evening or whatever, then it's like, oh shit, like, it's now like 8 p.m. I have a bunch of work stuff to sort out before tomorrow. It's like not a good feeling. I think on previous holidays, I've done a better job of making sure everything is in order beforehand so I can truly unplug. But I do actually like to truly unplug. I think my expectations for this weekend were that, this was like 4 days, right? So it's a bit longer than just like a weekend. I think my expectations were that there would probably be a bit of work for a couple of hours a day. My expectations definitely weren't that anyone in the group would be working all day on any of the days, for example. I didn't expect that.
So I definitely thought it was a writing retreat. Okay, so I came in knowing. So basically, I don't honestly have a lot of time in the day to work on my other stuff on the side. So the weekend is the only time I can work on it. So for me, weekends are definitely not a way for me to unplug. For me, I have to take a couple of weeks off to unplug. So definitely came in thinking this was a writing retreat. And I knew that coming into this trip, I had a few things I had to finish off. And I didn't feel mentally happy or feel mentally like present, as Sadie mentioned, in the conversations until I knew I just ticked something off. But yes, definitely holidays should be a way to unplug. Typically, I wouldn't be on my laptop the whole day, maybe 1 hour or 2 hours a day.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question of like what makes the ideal holiday, because one of the things that I'm planning for the business is kind of regular creator retreats, or like working retreats where we kind of go to a cabin in the Lake District or something, and everyone is working on their stuff. And I've been thinking about like what would be the ideal setup for this if we had like a few days or a week or even 2 weeks. And I think having breakfast together in the morning, and then everyone working on their own stuff up until sort of late afternoon, evening, then going for a bit of a walk or doing a group activity, and then having dinner together, and then doing like the DMCs, board games, whatever at nighttime. That to me feels like the absolute perfect setup for a holiday, where from like 10 till 5, people are doing their work. And from 5 onwards, it's like pure vibes with the group.
Imagine if that was just life generally. That would be so good. That'd be such a good
Oh my God,
setup.
yeah, you're right.
That would be a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah. What?
Imagine going to work.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a really good setup for like a 1 week, 2 week type thing for sure. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Great. So we'll do that setup next time around. Yeah, I just think kind of expectations need to be communicated in advance with strong and stable leadership, so that people going into a kind of silent meditation retreat are not the same people who are like, guys, let's go to the model village together.
You need to stop hating on the model village.
Yeah, for sure. I think expectations are important. But to be honest, like if I look back on good group holidays I've had, like one absolute banger of a group holiday for social bonding was, I don't know, it was like 12 days long. There was no work at all. Like no one was doing any work.
Yeah,
All just hanging out.
I think those sorts of holidays are nice as well. Yeah, it's just about getting a balance. I'd love to go on a silent meditation retreat that's 12 days long with complete unplugging.
Yeah, I can see you doing very well there.
Mate, it'll be great. I can film it. It'll be good content.
You are not allowed to film in a silent retreat. It's
I'll-
unplugging.
I'll
Do you
bring
understand?
someone else along to film me with a telephoto lens. It'll be good content.
So going back to this group holiday, I felt like when Ali and Zaidi initially on the second day, went off to work, I felt like I had to work as well. You know, you were just saying earlier, and I felt like I had to work. And then when Ali was like, today, oh, I'm going to go work. Does anyone want to come? And then I felt slightly bad. I was like, but he can't work by himself. What if he just sits by himself? It's not nice for him.
Oh, mate, I would have loved that.
Oh, well, okay. I won't come next time. I won't come next time. But at the same time, I feel like, you know, with one person starts, it ends up being like some sort of domino effect. And then when do you, like, you know, when do you tell them that, hey, maybe we should hang together as a group? Like, and what point of the trip would you do that?
I think you'd probably do it sort of 2 days in, maybe on a group podcast kind of setup. As when you might do. No, I'm kidding. But I agree with the domino effect kind of thing, because I think just, you know, we've talked about this many times on the podcast. I think just the narratives in society around work are just like pretty messed up. And if if you're like on a holiday and one person is working, other people on the holiday might feel bad for not working or feel guilty of like,
Really?
oh, this other person
Yeah.
is like working, you know, I should be being productive as well if other people are being productive kind of thing. I think like the narratives around work are just like, you know, kind of shitty. And so even though that sounds really stupid and like, what, you know, why would you feel guilty if someone else is working? I think it is actually a phenomenon. It sounds like maybe you kind of felt that a little bit, and Sheen,
Yeah,
you kind of.
when Timu, when you were working, when we were having drinks earlier, the three of us, and then I thought, oh, I don't want to work. I'm just going to be on my phone. And then after 5 minutes, I took my laptop out. Being
I'm
like,
sorry.
I should probably do some work too.
I had to do it. I'm sorry.
Why did you have that feeling? I feel like I never have that feeling of other people around me are working, therefore I should.
Have you ever been in a situation where people around you are working and you're not working?
Yeah, plenty of times.
When-
If I've actively decided to relax and other people are working, I kind of feel, screw you guys.
Well, okay, actually, I don't think that's really true. I think there have definitely been instances, and like, I think you've kind of said the stuff as a joke, but I'm sure there was some truth to it, where, I don't know, like, I seem to remember when we were in Japan a couple of years ago or something, and I was doing some work stuff. You were like, wait, you were sort of jokingly, you know, something like, wait, why are you being productive? What are you doing? Kind of thing. You know, this kind of thing. And like, I know it's a joke, but
This
like,
was clearly for banter because I was
No.
playing into like genuinely I cannot remember a time in which someone else around me was working and I felt guilty for not. Yeah.
I've never seen you, for example, we live together and there's never been a point where I'm working and you're not.
Well, there is when you had a job. And I'd be bumming around. I mean, I bum around for most of the day.
Okay.
You know, I wake up late, I play tennis in the morning, I get back home, I spend a half an hour in the toilet, then I maybe drive to WeWork, takes half an hour to get there. Then it's like, oh, it's 11:30, you know, might as well start work after lunch, order some ahi poke. The whole day is wasted while you're kind of working away at your old 9-to-5 job, for example. But then in the evenings is when I get my actual work done, when you're free, and so it looks as if I'm working all the time. When in reality, I've just been a bum for most of the morning while you've been doing the proper work.
Okay.
But like, why? I want to explore the feeling a bit further. So like, Carlton and Lucia, you were saying as well that you have that feeling where you feel guilty when other people around you are working and you're not. I mean, I can appreciate that. Like, for example, at university, if your friends who are studying the same subject are working and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to fall behind. But now that we're all doing our own thing and there's no real sense of competition and stuff, why is that a concern?
Okay, so
Yeah, I think I do feel that like guilt if someone else is working, and it's because I constantly feel like I haven't always been optimal at my working, like maybe I haven't been efficient one day, or maybe I haven't gotten the task done that I thought I should do. So I feel like there's this constant debt of work that I should have done that I haven't done. And then sometimes I'll tell myself it's okay, you can have a weekend off, you can have a day off, but underlying that is always, you know, you should be doing more, you should have done more. And then when you see someone else working, that just reminds you of like, yeah, that should be me, I should be doing that too.
Okay, that's really interesting. Do you feel like because you're running your charity thing, and so your work directly leads to useful impact in the world, whereas for me, what I've been trying to tell myself recently, you know, for example, there's this thing we've been struggling with in the business where we could do this thing and we'd make a lot more money, but it would be a bit chaotic, or we could just chill and not make that money, and it's not actually a huge deal. And so my model can be, and the thing that I was telling myself is, why am I doing this business in the first place? Well, really, it's to have fun. And, who cares if I'm leaving money on the table? If I'm having more fun, then that's what matters. I get, is your perspective on this different given that you run the charity?
Yeah, I think it probably makes a difference, because what I think is like, okay, if I'm not doing the best I can at this, you know, more kids will get lead poisoning, they'll suffer the consequences, there'll be just way more suffering in the world. So it's like pretty high stakes, right? So maybe that's why it makes me feel a bit more guilty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also about people's work ethics, right? Some people will feel bad about taking money for not working when they're meant to be working. For example, people who are employed, but also people's values of thinking whether they're doing justice to what they've promised to do rather than just the impact of their work. So there's a lot of that.
I think a source of the guilt is also when you have a responsibility towards other people. It sounds like that's kind of what you're getting at, Lucia, with the people who'd benefit from the work that your charity is doing. But I think if you work in any kind of organization and other people are relying on you for things, it is often hard to, like on one level, you might think, work is, not the top priority in my life and I should prioritize these other things. But on another level, you've made a commitment to some people that you might do something, and it's kind of your responsibility not to let a team down. And I think that kind of stuff is sort of what weighs on you. And like the stuff that I was doing this weekend, for example, it was like, oh crap, like literally everyone in the company has like sent me some sort of Slack message that I should probably reply to, so no one is like held up on things, and I have a responsibility to the team to be like kind of responsive, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So to conclude, it sounds like what we're saying is a bit in response to the issue that you brought up, which is to what extent is it reasonable / how do we feel generally about, in a group setting, group holidays, people breaking off and kind of doing their own thing, acting in sort of service to themselves rather than service to the group overall. And you said it depends on the expectations that are set in advance, depends on the makeup of the group, depends on how big the group size is, and something around what is the purpose of the group holiday, which kind of varies for different people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable summary. To be honest, I think, as with most episodes, I think the good stuff is not really in the bullet point summary, but more in the just like stories, anecdotes, and stuff that everyone's shared.
Vibes.
The vibes, really. So if you've somehow skipped to the end, you're going to have to listen to the whole thing, I'm afraid. But no, this was really fun. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week. How do we find that?